is point four cents per stream.
Right.
No.
They're the most popular and the least generous.
I think they pay less than 0.4 cents per stream because there are people who get, literally tens of millions of streams and they only get a couple $100.
Yeah.
So there's like a couple of zeros missing.
Oh, there you go.
I mean, it's I don't know. I like I don't use downloads because I'm an old guy, and I like it's a fetishism, I guess. I like this physical medium, but I don't mind that if people want to have the whatever format. And in fact, I do like the fact that if you buy a download, you're not having to have a plastic component to your music, right?
Well, I'm like you, Luis.
Yeah.
I want the physical piece in my hand.
I have thousands of albums that are all downstairs, but at the same time, I think the problem is that there's a lot of people who feel that they're entitled to have it for free.
Well, they've been raised. A whole generation has been raised on the fact that music is there for the taking.
And
ever since Napster, man.
Well, exactly. But the Napster thing was by its very nature pirate. And then when iTunes and all these other things came into play and they made it official, the marketplace essentially said, this is worthless. We are going to make the money now from sales, right? Because the real revolution is that everybody has a smartphone, right?
Yeah.
So everybody has access to whatever, app. And then, the illusion that the Spotify people create is that you can have, whatever million views or listens or whatever, and then people will show up at your show. And even people in bands that I work with, guys who are my age, they buy it. They believe that that's the case. And I've actually shown them the numbers. I say, look, there is no correlation between the number of times our shit is downloaded and the number of tickets we sell at shows. Well, there just isn't.
They're trying to equate Spotify with FM radio like it was in this,
Yeah.
When I was growing up, that's how you found out about a band. And it was just FM radio. I mean, to give you an idea, you could be big in Boston and nobody in New York or Philadelphia heard about you. You know what I mean? Because it was FM. It's only as far as FM went. Then MTV came in. And anybody in the United States who turned on MTV at any given time saw this one thing going on.
That's right.
And it worked and it didn't work because you had so many bands that had 2 or 3 big hits on MTV, right? And then they went on tour, and based on record sales, they were playing arenas. And after those 3 songs, they had nothing. They never got the second album, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. But it gets worse because the radio programs, the listeners didn't get to curate what they listened to. In other words, there's a certain, which leads to other problems. But here, you get to pick everything that's ever been put out, even if you don't want it to be there. I can tell you that my stuff is there, and I never gave it to them. So, and years ago, I tried to get it out. I wrote to them. I said, I don't know how you guys got this, but I own the copyright to all of these songs, and I don't want them here. And their response essentially was they were laughing and said, well, you can sue us, and we will just outspend you.
Was that on Spotify, or where was that?
Yeah. So I've had to be super careful to, I believe the way that it got there, I think it must have happened when CD Baby changed hands.
Yeah, they sold their catalog.
So then I was basically screwed out of it. But it's there is no easy way to go about this unless you really have a huge amount of time and money to waste.
Yeah.
So for me, it's when I went to grad school, there was a professor who was called the Hassan principle, And it basically is, if something is too good to be true, it ain't. If you can
yeah.
pay a minimum subscription and have every song ever made available, it's obvious that people who made that music are not getting paid.
Anything.
Nothing, right?
Absolutely.
And I think that while it is true that, for example, I don't make music to pay my rent or my mortgage, right? I know people who do. And I know people who have suffered immensely as a result of this because it has cut their income by a significant margin. And that means that they have to go out and play. And some of them are physically unable to do so consistently because they have various problems that make it hard. I mean, going out on the road is it requires some endurance. It requires, if nothing else, it requires you to be able to survive on a pretty shitty diet and with very little sleep. So I think that and the other part, which I think, I don't know what you guys think. I'm going to shut up now and not let you talk. But I have always found that people in general, like the audience, have a very weird idea about how many albums a band makes and a band sells. It's usually, people think it's a hell of a lot more than it actually is. And therefore they imagine that people are fighting over huge amounts of money and that maybe you shouldn't be so greedy, when in reality, no, people are not selling tens of thousands of records or hundreds of thousands across the board. Maybe if you can sell 1,000 records, if you're an indie artist, you're doing well.
Well, I agree with you, because when Nearfest was at live, and Chad started Nearfest Records, and he would get a contract with some of the artists that played and press it and sell it. Now, some of them sold out, but if you go to his house, there's a big stack of boxes in his garage with all that didn't sell.
That's right.
I mean, a lot. You know that. You've been there. He's got a lot of them that,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, if you contact him, he'll practically give them to you just to clear up space. But, the point was he only printed roughly 1,000 of each.
That's right.
Now a few did sell out. Like Is sold out, and Is DVD Live at Nearfest sold out. Forget which ones off the top of my head, to be very honest with you. But the whole key is that I know one guy in a band. They call themselves a punk band, but I've never heard a punk band with like Beach Boys harmonies before. So but they tour a lot, and he says what they do. You can go to their website, and they will allow you to download anything they have for free, right? But in a limited bandwidth. He says as a result, when they go out on tour, they sell a lot of vinyl. Because the people want the music, but they're getting that limited bandwidth, so they want to hear the real thing, so they will buy it. And he says sometimes, he's telling me at the end of the tour, they will split the money evenly between each band member, and sometimes at the end of a tour, and we're talking a club band, not arenas, not big theaters. Well, some theaters, but mostly clubs, big clubs. So he'll come home with an extra $10,000, and there's 6 guys in the band.
Have you guys seen the most recent trend where bands are actually playing live in a sort of a studio setting and then broadcasting it, so you can download it or not download it? You can do a live streaming. Pineapple Thief did it, and just recently Gary Newman did it. Where they do nice lighting in the studio, and they're selling tickets to that like a gig, but they're setting it up and then they're recording it with a really high quality, and that's starting to happen. I think that's a sort of a COVID after effect.
It's definitely a COVID after effect.
Mm-hmm. But it's a good. It's good.
It's something that caught on because it gives the artist the reach to an unprecedented number of people who are truly fans. I mean, you can be sitting anywhere in the world, and pay the price and get it. I mean, the guys that put Prog Stock on, I think they set the precedent to that, because when they knew Prog Stock wasn't going to happen due to the COVID, they started doing live streams like every week, and 2 or 3 bands, literally from the theater that this upcoming Prog Stock will be at, and they did it right. And I know the next Prog Stock, they went from a 1,300 seat theater to a 200 seat theater, because people aren't willing to travel and they couldn't bring in a lot of the artists that they might have wanted from international. But they are going to stream it. I mean, you'll pay for it, but they're going to stream it. And I can tell you from watching some of them, the quality. as you were saying, Franz, the quality when they put it into it is really, really good.
Yeah, it was mind-blowingly good actually for live streaming for the video, especially the Pineapple Thief one was so clear and so sharp, and the cameras would zoom in and get really in there, and they were on a rail that was going around it. They set it up in such a nice way. And my only regret is that I can't see it after that initial time frame, because I think they have a certain rights to stream it, or to do on-demand streaming for like 4 or 5 days, and then it stops. But I'd love to get my hands on that recording, so I hope they release it on Blu-ray or something.
Well, I'm
But
sure
I know
they
we're kind of
will.
wandering a little bit off topic, but I think it still is exactly within, what can bands do in order to overcome, the losses that they may get, or the unfulfilled revenue from streaming services, because, there is that aspect of it. What do you do now? And that's one of the first things that I saw that was, a semi-workable solution for some bands, not for all.
That's right. Only for some. That's true.
Yeah, because a lot of other bands, they have people in others, in United States, have them in other states, or some have them in different parts of the world, so that's going to be, I mean, I guess the next thing for technology would be, is how we're talking right here. But if a band, let's say, had 5 people, they'd be able to stream outward, and, with, where it's perfect sound, and but I don't see that happening for a long while.
Some bands did that. I mean, if you remember, Marillion had a couple of things. It was like a Marillion weekend, and they did replay some of their DVDs. But at some point, they were literally playing together in sync from their own homes.
Well,
And I've
that's
seen
cool.
other
That
bands
is
do it.
almost incredible, because I don't know how they overcome the latency.
Yeah,
that's-
that appeared to be in sync, but it was actually something that was done. It was done offline and then merged together online, so it seemed to be real.
Essentially
That's the
pre-recorded.
Swappers 11 is what you're talking about, probably.
Essentially pre-recorded, because I know there was a group of bands here on Long Island. They did that, and one guy will sit there and put it all together, edit it, mix it, whatever you want, and then send it out. But the idea that that you can do something, yes, I grant you have to remix it and edit it later, but the idea that you can do something like that with so many people in how distant locations. I mean, you could be anywhere. As long as you have that one guy who's going to play the producer role, it'll work.
That would be some sort of streaming service, but paying streaming service for the artists. Controlled by the artists themselves. That would be interesting.
But I still think that, while that is true, there is no reason why they can't pay the artists more for the streaming.
No, there isn't.
Greed.
That's ultimate.
Yeah.
I mean, and I can use Bandcamp as the model. Bandcamp is the model, right? Everybody gets paid. We get paid the majority of the money. Of course, I only think it's fair that Bandcamp gets compensated in order for them to put up all the stuff.
Yeah, but differently. What the thing is, Bandcamp, different from Spotify. It's a digital content provider. They're not a streaming service. They don't have digital streams that you can access.
You actually can,
anytime,
yes.
anywhere.
You can access streams from Bandcamp. You can play.
You can listen to the whole record if you want, and not pay for it.
Yeah, but you can't make playlists and stuff like that.
Yes, you cannot make playlists.
No, but
True. Yeah, that's because they're still old technology.
But Bandcamp
And
is also
I
essentially
like
a
that.
store.
The Bandcamp truly has been the lifeblood for many of the bands that I work with, and many of my friends' bands. That is the only source of income that we have. If you cannot go out there and tour and sell merchandise, well, and by the way, most people won't buy CDs in concerts. They will buy T-shirts, they will buy a mug, they will buy and vinyl if you happen to be smart enough to make colored vinyl, because it seems that a lot of people like it for decoration. Not everybody buys it to play it.
I bought tons of vinyl. I mean, I got vinyl stacks here. I don't even have a record player.
That's right. So
Not anymore, anyway.
Vinyl is a beautiful object, right? And it's very difficult to roll a joint on a CD.
Right? Luis, watch this.
I mean,
You have to be very careful.
because it's legal now, and because everybody's been doing it forever, and let's not be fucking hypocrites. But also, there we go. And I think that there is also another thing about it. If it used to be, right, and I know I sound like my fucking grandfather, but it used to be that you would get an album, and that was an event, and you would get home and experience the artwork, and the artwork ideally was of a place which only the music belonged to. You get into that, and you're listening. Your activity for that afternoon is listening to the album.
I used to do
Exactly.
that.
When you have something like this, it becomes fucking sonic wallpaper.
Oh, that's true.
I
It's
think
what's
it has
happening.
to do with discipline, though, because
Sure, but the
it's
thing is,
easy to do it. If you
Yeah.
are going to be distracted, you have to mentally set all the iPads and stuff aside when you start playing stuff, and you can still get that, but you have to be disciplined.
Sure.
And I think our
Absolutely.
generation knows that, but the younger generation never knew that.
but you cannot be working out and listening to the record player, which is in your body, right? The needle will jump everywhere. So that's kind of
I
the
don't
thing.
even want to know how you want to achieve that particular feat.
You know what
but
I mean? It's like even if you
suspend
have some
disbelief.
kind of weird contraption, it wouldn't work. And I think that it's not a matter of attention. It's a matter of the role that the music plays
Mhm.
for most people, and the amount of time that they spend with it and how they engage with it has changed. I believe that there is a lot of evidence to support the idea that part of the reason why it has changed came when Steve Jobs and these guys made that
iPod.
contract with the proverbial devil to create iTunes and all these things, because that was more than Napster could have ever dreamed of doing, because Napster didn't have the kind of technological power that these guys had. They worked directly with the labels. The label said yes, because we're not selling as much as we want. We'd rather get some cash now. Everything was very short-sighted, and here we are. So I hope, for me, it would be nice that people would get more money for the any streaming they do, simply because it costs money to make the fucking records, just to record them. It takes money, it takes time. It's not for free. And I can tell you about my students. All my students always say that they're sticking it to the man. And I always explain, the only man you're sticking it to is me and guys like me.
Exactly.
Because I'm not in a label. One kid told me, I have all your albums. And I said, really? Where did you get them? Oh, I got them from a stream somewhere. Oh. And why did you steal them? And he was completely confused.
Oh,
Yeah.
there you go. What
Yeah.
you're saying, Luis, is absolutely true. Right now, what we have is what I call the Spotify generation. They might have never even bought a CD in their whole lives. They consider music the same way they consider television, or it's like something that's there to entertain or background noise. Well, you can't just ask them to support the artist or buy their music instead of getting it for free. It's an essential consumable commodity to them, like air or water, period. You'll never get these people in your camp. Oh, well, we need to pay the artist. It's not even in their mind. It doesn't
They don't get it.
exist.
Yeah, they don't get it.
They don't.
And that's a lot of people, a lot.
You don't understand that music, in a sense, is a product. You buy music just like you buy a pair of pants or you go buy a slice of pizza. They don't equate it like that. We did. I mean, like you were saying earlier, Luis, go to the store, you bought this new album, you came home, you put the album on the turntable, and you sat there and you read the liner notes, and it became a big, overwhelming experience.
Yes.
I mean, you didn't just put the music on and then go about what it wasn't background music while I got on the computer. You know what I
Yes.
mean? It was. I mean, I used to, when I was in high school, I was part of Columbia Records. Remember them?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yes, yes.
And
yes.
Oh boy, do I have
You get like
stories.
12 records for 10 cents, and then every record after that you were obligated for it cost you like $30, you know. But I'd come home and I'd see that thing sitting on by the front door, and I'd go, oh,
Oh, yeah.
you know what I mean? And I went upstairs, closed the door, you know, opened it up, and it was just great, you know what I mean? And if it was you know a double record, you could really roll a doobie on it. I mean, it was,
That's right.
just so
I mean,
cool.
nobody that I know, my age, ever can tell the story that they got Dark Side of the Moon, put it on the player, and then decided to vacuum or
Yeah.
work out
Exactly.
or catch a show. That's never the story, right? So I think it is. I mean, I was told directly by a student at UIC. She told me, Nasser, CDs are for suckers. That was the line.
Yeah.
And I'm a big sucker.
She was trying to kind of tell me, like, dude, you know, why is it that you don't get it? Like it's finished, right? That was kind of her like exactly as you guys are saying. In her mind, this is beyond question ridiculous.
Exactly.
To insist on
Yeah.
trying to
Well, if you look at
sell
that rack
it.
behind me,
No.
I have 3 more.
Nobody even wants them. They consider them some kind of. It's almost like when you know when you go out on the street and people want to give you a leaflet or something. That's kind of how they view it. Like, what is this thing? Like, I don't want this thing. It's annoying.
Yeah.
Right?
Chris Busby of Ekelin was saying the other day, and he's a music teacher. I don't know if you saw this. Excuse me. He posted this online that his students asked that he would bring in CDs of his own music, you know, to enlighten his students and blah 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 about how it was produced, this and that. And the general reaction was, "Why do you have CDs?
Yeah, he
What is
mentioned
a
that
CD?"
one.
You know.
Yeah, one of his students goes like going, "Well, what's a yeah, exactly, what's a CD?" You know, and then he showed it, and they were looking at it as if it was like maybe a caveman would look at something, you know, from the future. You know,
I
like
blame it on the parents, man. Jeez, what's wrong with you guys?
They look at CDs the way that they look at a rotary phone.
right.
Yeah, what is that? You know.
Yeah. I mean, the other day I brought a keyboard, my old Korg keyboard, the 01WFD, the floppy drive, right? And it had the little, you know, I still have the little disc where you can store sequences and things if you want them or sounds.
Mhm.
They were looking at that like it had landed from an alien civilization. Like, what the hell are these little things?
I know what you're talking about, Louis.
It's a 3.5
they
inch
had
floppy
no
drive, man.
idea.
What's the matter? I've never seen one before.
No, they were like, and I like, I give it to them. Yeah, this is antique technology, right? This is from before they were even conceived,
Yeah.
let alone born. So,
Louis, it's so funny that you're talking about this because I have something similar to that. I have an old Yamaha DX21, and just recently I found the Holy Grail. Sorry, the Yamaha playbook.
No more.
set.
Not anymore, yeah.
It's
Yeah,
rare
I
as
have a bunch of
hell.
old formats, man. I have mini discs. I have cassettes. I have DATs.
Mhm.
I don't have I have a mini disc player. I have cassette deck. I don't have a DAT player. And a bunch of the stuff that are on the DATs were like recordings I made under the table, so to speak, when I was out on tour mixing. You know.
Mhm.
I used to
Dirt
mix
pocket
monitors.
recordings.
I used to mix monitors all the time, so I would take like a line out of there to the DAT. You know what I mean? I've got like America, I've got Kiss, I've got a few others. I'll just say that.
that's right. Don't say
Yeah,
kid. Gene Simmons coming after you.
Yeah, exactly. Because those guys know how to market themselves, right? I saw someone had a Kiss a coffin. You know, they got buried in a Kiss Army coffin. It was awesome.
I believe it. They had Kiss condoms. Did you know that? They had Kiss condoms.
Yeah, Kiss condoms. Yeah.
But here's the thing. This is where like Gene Simmons. I remember he was talking. We were up tour, and I was not the monitor engineer. I was the monitor tech. I put the system together for the guy who was going to mix, and they had yellow earplugs that would go in your ear, and you could buy a pair. Each would have a different Kiss face on it. And I remember Gene Simmons saying it sometimes. It doesn't have to sound great, but I want it really loud so that people will buy these.
$1 a piece.
Hey, it was a marketing
5,000 people. That's $5,000 in their pocket. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
those things,
permanent tinnitus. Yay.
those things were, I'm talking like 1990. The tour was the Hot in the Shade tour. If you remember, this, the cover looked like a sphinx, you know.
Yeah.
And when how the tour would open, it was a big sphinx in the back of the stage, and the mouth would open. And when the mouth opened, the four of them were there, and the mouth became like a drawbridge ramp to the stage. Then they would come out and they start playing. And I think they were selling those things for like $10 a set back then, but we're going back 32 years ago. So think about that. You know?
Crazy. Yeah, well, but then again, if people want to spend their money, that's cool. But I also find it a little bit unethical to have such a big surcharge on something. But hey, I'm not Gene.
Yeah, but look at
why I'm broke and he ain't. Right.
Look at it this way. You go to a concert right now, what's the average t-shirt cost you? And no one's putting a gun to your head to buy it.
Yeah, it's like $25 or something, $30 for a t-shirt.
Oh, more. It depends on the artist. If you go see the Who or one of those,
yeah, 50 probably more.
Yeah.
Sweatshirt, 100, you know.
It's
$20 for this one.
Yeah. Well,
I remember when I first started going to concerts, we went to see Yes Close to the Edge tour. And for roughly $12 total, we had second row seats, t-shirts, and a six-pack. But
Wow.
we're talking like early 70s, you know what I mean?
so that's
50
what, like
50 years ago.
$40 of today, maybe 50.
Probably more like $1,500 today. I think. How far back was that again?
Like 71.
Multiply times something.
Literally, I hate to say this, you know, because you can see why I've got such great dark hair. Like 50 years ago, you know?
50 years ago. Yeah.
Literally.
Well, even 40 years ago, I have my original Rush moving picture ticket at $9.95. That was a good deal for pretty damn good concert ticket.
That's the one thing I regret I didn't do that a lot of people did, and I didn't think about it. I never saved my concert stubs. And that, to me,
Every single one I have.
to me, going to a concert was the equivalent of a sports fan's rush when they would go to like the Super Bowl or something. You know what I mean? To me, which is why I got into the business I did. You know, I mean, I was just people watching the band, and I'm looking at the production side and thinking, all right, how are these speakers hung? You know, and wow, you know, listen to this. You know, I'd be the guy sitting there would say, you know, if the bass player had a cabinet on each side of the drummer, the overall sound would be better balanced. You know, I was that guy. You know, I was the guy when you came to my house. I had a bunch of vinyl, but the speakers were positioned so that when I was in bed, I had the headphone effect. You know what I mean? That was me. I was that guy, and I still am to this day.
Good for you. Good for you.
Susie tells me I have OCD because I'll sit there and look at the speakers and I'll move this one 3 inches and that one 2 inches. That's be perfect. You know?
But then you have an MP3 and the earbuds.
Oh no! I gotta be honest with you. As a guy who mixed monitors on tours, I am not a big fan of in-ear monitors or headphones in general, because think about this: you would listen to a full album, right? Like say ELP's, Welcome Back, My Friends. You can listen to the whole thing straight through. That's gonna run you almost an hour and a half. Okay, and you're listening on headphones. Now ask yourself this. How many times during that listen did you turn the volume up?
Multiple.
Okay. But you never turned it down.
Never.
So why did you turn it up? Because your ears naturally start to close and protect themselves. What you're doing is, slow but sure, you're going to start damaging your hearing. And as you were mentioning earlier, tinnitus, there it is, you know what I mean? Or you can't hear certain things.
What?
And I remember seeing an interview.
What?
That's just deafness right there.
It's affected me, like when Susie says, "Can you take out the garbage?" I never hear her, but you know.
Yeah, but
like,
that's a self-protecting mechanism right there, because that's how you get out of work, right?
Selective hearing.
Selective hearing, exactly.
But I remember seeing an interview from a documentary on Bon Jovi, and John Bon Jovi is sitting somewhere having a glass of wine, and they're talking to him. So, what do you do after a show? He goes, "Well, I have to sit down and wait till the ringing in my ears go away." You know, because you're using in-ear monitors, and they don't think to just, all right, like a lot of bands, those amps you see on stage are, they're props. There's nothing in them. The real amp is under the stage with the guitar tech, things like that. But some of them are still blowing stuff back at them. And they have a couple of mics spread around so they can get the ambience of the room and hear what it sounds like. And little by little, you see them turning it up. Or they look at the monitor again and go,
Right.
And you're doing this every night for how many months? 90 minutes, 120 minutes a night doesn't sound like a lot, but it is. And then they go to the doctor and they find out, oh, we got all this wax we have to take out of your ear. And, oh, do you realize that since your last, examination, your hearing at the range of like 6.3 and 8K is down 6 dB,
Mine has been like that since birth. I have really small ear canals. So I thought the doctor back then said that I had small eardrums or malformed ones, but it turned out recently, like in the past year, the doctor said, you have, very small ear canals. So I listen. That's why I use headphones, because I can't hear things that are just going in open space.
Same thing here. Unfortunately, many years ago, I had an incident that damaged my hearing permanently. I didn't lose any part of my hearing. I still hear very, very well, but I suffer from tinnitus because of one person, Mr. Ted Nugent. I was at a Ted Nugent concert, front row, right in front of the speakers, and I had no ear protection at all. For the next 3 days after that show, my ears were ringing and people were talking to me, and all I would hear is
that's permanent, unfortunately.
yeah, but it came back and my hearing is absolutely perfect. Actually, it's even better than a lot of people my age, because since then, every single show I've ever been to, I have earplugs.
Yeah, I have musician plugs, custom molds.
Every
But again, I'm
time.
married to an audiologist, so I actually have the inner track on that, and she basically has to deal with all kinds of hearing loss all day long. But I have the ones that sort of, they kind of corkscrew into your ear. They're custom molded, and they have filters on there. So they take everything down 20 or 15 or 10 decibels, have interchangeable filters. Etymotic Research makes them, the filters. But, that's really the thing. I never go to a gig without them, because I got blasted away by Queensryche, probably about 15 years ago. And it gave me permanent tinnitus. It's like, yeah, I was on the video. Yeah. But then, later it's like, I can't see what's going on the next couple of days. My ears were ringing. Not good. But I learned my lesson.
But that's the way to go, though, to go to an audiologist. I did that. I got a set of in-ears made, that were going to be with the band, the same as the band, so we could all hear the same. And audiologists, first they did was they gave me a full-blown hearing test. Then they took molds, and then they sent the results of the molds and the hearing test to the manufacturer. And mine were designed to fit, my pros and cons with my hearing range, And it sounded good, but again, after, I didn't like the idea. I eventually had them bring me wedges back to, my monitor position, because I didn't like walking off stage, taking them out, and like, woo, 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 for a little while. Not all night, but, I wouldn't hear the high end as well. I would hear like a little ringing, or I'd hear the ocean, you know what I'm talking about? And, it wasn't good. I didn't like it. And I still have them, but I can count on one hand how many times I'll use them in a year.
I don't know. My ears are shot. I sleep in a basement, and in the morning there's like, oh, there's birds. Where are the birds? And no, there's no birds.
Wee.
So I have to be careful. I use earplugs, special ones whenever I play. But for me, it was also the headphones. Like back in the days when people went to studios to record. You remember those days? Before you did everything in your house, you would go in and you had your mix, and as the session progressed, volume would increase, and then it was lunchtime. and you would leave, and then you would put on the cans like, whoa, super loud. Everybody down, everybody down. But then by nighttime, it was already back up, and it was every day for days and days. So yeah, but in any case, I don't know that this has much to do with streaming. Is
No,
more
actually, I was just going to say that it does, because if you watch all these young people who are streaming stuff, 90% of the time you see them walking down the street, they've got their earbuds in, regardless of who made them, whether they're wireless or they're wired. You'll see them all the time. We were on a show in Brooklyn. We had a couple hours to kill, so we were outside, just sitting in the van, you know what I mean, just to get out, you know, having a sandwich, and we started watching how many people walked by. So this was a hipster yuppie section, whatever you want to call it, of Generation X Brooklyn, and we started counting how many people went by with the Apple earbuds in, and we were floored. It was like in an hour we saw like 200 people, because it was very busy.
Future patients of my wife, you know.
And Kevin, even worse.
Investment, but
Job security, man.
Is that they've got their iPhone somewhere on their body. They're listening to that. They all use them.
Yeah, and Kevin, even worse, some of these kids, they have their earbuds. You're about 10 feet from them, and you hear the music, and you can identify the song.
Yeah.
Oh, Christ.
That's why I said I'm totally, I mean, I understand them. You need them for certain things. There are certain situations I'm in. I needed to be able to identify something, but whether it's an in-ear or it's a headphone, you know, I got to cue something up in the middle of a show. Most of the stuff I do now is, corporate stuff, so I've got to make sure this video is cued the same way, or this play off or play on music is cued. So I use my headphones, but they're not on for like more than 5 seconds. You know what I mean? Where I can get away with that, I have a couple of little speakers in front of me, and I'll use them off the headphone thing. But I see so many kids young today. It's just the way stuff is.
These are what I use. I tried the earbuds, but they tickled, and so I cleaned them up and I gave them to a friend. I said, "Here, maybe you'll get some use out of them."
Yeah, the whole thing, it's the way it's marketed.
Yeah.
Get one of these and a set of earbuds, and all the music you'll ever need will be in your pocket.
Right. Yeah,
That's true.
Did you guys just watch that same commercial? I mean, look at that, Kevin. You've missed your calling, man.
I've been, the unfortunate thing is, you don't hear yourself the way other people hear you, and more people have told me that, Kev, with your voice, why weren't you on FM? Why aren't you doing voiceovers? Why aren't you doing this? And I'm the guy who gets stuck doing all the introductions and stuff at corporate meetings, but it is what it is. I'm too old, I don't care. But to get back to things that we were talking about earlier, the way it's marketed, and you were talking about how much, Luis, how much money it cost to produce an album. As Frans, I'm sure you understand completely. The people that market themselves as labels today are not labels. They're distribution companies.
Best.
All they are.
Yeah, they don't put any money up front or anything. It's not like that golden days.
No, you're not going to get in advance for your next record. You're not going to get tour support. All you're going to get is you're going to find out that after you take your completed project, you're fully wrapped and ready to sell CD, and you ship them X amount, they're going to slap their label on it somewhere, and if they sell it for $15, you're going to get, for argument's sake, let's say 12, because they're going to keep 20%. And then what they're going to do is, because I bought from these labels, they're going to charge me an additional $5 to $6 for shipping. When the shipping comes in, it's going to say it cost $1.85. I grant you they had to pay a little for the packaging, but they still made a profit off that too. They don't do anything for you other than put you on their website and hype you up. But they're not laying out a penny for you.
Yeah, most don't help with tour support or anything like that either. So
no, they don't
you're really kind of stuck with distribution, and that's it. But again, it's not a bad service, because most bands don't have the commercial wherewithal to be able to get that stuff out there in front of the right people, or to get the stuff on these different labels. I
completely agree. But why don't you just call yourself this music sale company, this music record store, this music distribution company? Don't call yourself a label, because all these people don't understand, because now you're signing contracts and these people are like, oh my God, we're on a record label. Oh my God. You're not on a record label.
it is sad, but at the same time, I know a lot of guys in bands who I wouldn't trust with a takeout order, much less with shipping out orders after orders. And there's no disrespect to them. I love these guys to death, but that's not where their minds are at. So
Right.
some guys
They're
do need that.
musicians. They're not marketers. Yeah.
Yeah. So I see a useful service, but it's not. And I don't think that anybody, the majority of people who are working in this today, ever dealt with an actual label that would give you touring support and a band.
Do those still exist?
Yeah, I mean,
They're
they do.
out there.
Metallica has Metallica has their own label.
Yeah.
They're their own thing.
So yeah, well, so does Marillion, right? They've created their own label because they couldn't coexist with whatever label and the Shaft deal that they were getting. But there's only a small percentage of companies that can actually do that, and that's why I think the great equalizer comes from, like we mentioned earlier, Bandcamp, and those types of sites. Used to be CD Baby, that allow customers to self-publish, if you will, and get their music out there. And to the topic of streaming, I mean, I buy a lot of music off of Bandcamp. I get it, if high res is if it's available, and then I also buy a lot of physical media, and I stream. So I do all three. And I have one tool called Rune. It's basically a digital front end for my entire music system, and all my stuff is on there, and it combines the streaming information from Qobuz and from Tidal, from those two sources, and it merges it with my own library, which has about 8,000 albums in it, and then it puts together playlists. Yeah, I've been ripping since year dot, and it's a labor of love, but I have the full meal deal here. So I want to look up Sonus Umbra, for instance. Boom, there's like 2 or 3 albums online, and I can take a look at them, and I can listen to them, and then have them and then have them play, and then it will continue playing after that, and pick stuff from my library that's similar, or it will find things from other online sources, from the other 2 online sources that I have a membership with. So I actually have a really good way of doing this. And when I'm doing that, I can see lyrics, I can see the album notes and the liners, who was on it, meta tags. I can see everything, and it's not the same as going through the record label stores, remember, and going through and finding all that stuff, but it's a hell of a way to discover music, and I've learned a lot from that. So there are plus sides to this entire equation, but I think the downside is that the way that music is sort of consumed in general these days is very much as wallpaper, and not as like the center focus of things. And I think that if anything, if I would have my druthers, which I rarely do, but if I had them, I would see if it would be a way to sort of teach people, maybe, I don't know if it's critical listening, whatever the word is, but focus listening. Listen to the album and sort of be quiet and do the whole thing, and absorb the whole thing, and not just this one single and then boom, you're off to something else. I think that's part of what's missing. So the way we've changed as a society is we've moved very far away of it, and maybe it's just the older generation that has sort of this muscle memory of what it is to listen to vinyl, and to flip it over, and to have that focus for 2 times 30 minutes or however long it is. But it's not there. It's just that people have sort of pushed it off, and I think the ease of consumption of digital has made it easy to be very distracted, and all these different things going off, notifications and such. So I'm sure there's a way to get back to that, but I don't know if it's ever going to be the same again. I mean, that's my.
I don't think
No,
so.
the thing is, the genie is out of the bottle. The streaming services are gaining new members daily, and
Now Apple's in on the mix. They've gone high res as well. So there's just a huge amount of interest in it right now, and I think it's a second or third wave of interest. It just started again with Apple going with high res. I manage an online or a Facebook group that deals with high res digital audio discovery. It's basically all things streaming and digital media, the whole thing, and how do you play it. And just recently with that Apple announcement, we just it's another 1,000 members just poured on in all at the same time. Everybody wants to know about it, but it's also an opportunity within groups like that to say, hey, look, I heard of this cool band, listen to it, here it is on Bandcamp, give them a link, those kinds of things. So I still, fall back to my old habits of helping promote and distribute music, but just not in the capacity that I used to. That's all. But it's still there, but it's not as easy as it used to be. So, there are opportunities, but we have to be smarter about it. And I don't think, Kiss styled earplugs is the way to go necessarily. Who does that? Jeez, I'm still thinking.
Gene
That's
Simmons does
ridiculous, man.
Well, one of the things I love about today actually is internet radio. Is to me, you get a show like the Gagley Archives. Now, the Gagley Archives to me is what FM radio was in the '70s. This is where I'm going to hear new stuff because you're not going to hear it on FM radio today. Now you match that up with places like Bandcamp, where Tom plays one song off a new album, and you now go to Bandcamp and audition this whole album before you buy it, because there's been so many times when I would hear one song, by a band, and based on that, I would go to their website and I would buy the CD, and the CD would arrive a week later, and the rest of it, you know what I'm going to say. The rest of it is the vocalists sound like the death rattle of a koala bear. I mean, it was really, really, really bad. It was like, was this recorded at a torture syndrome somewhere? I mean, well, that's what I love about Bandcamp is I can audition the entire album before I buy it. Now, I'm just curious because Frans and Luis, you actually, as artists, deal with Bandcamp. What kind of ratio do they pay, per se?
Oh, we get 80% of everything.
See, that's a beautiful thing, man.
And on certain Fridays, they give us 100%.
Yeah, first Friday of every month.
Yeah.
During the pandemic.
So they were
it.
doing it during the pandemic. I don't know if they're going to continue doing it or not. But dude, there's no label ever in the so-called golden era that give the band 80%, right? So
I just read recently that Bandcamp in total has garnered total I think it was like $500 million that they have dished out to artists since they've started. That's
Bandcamp are the good guys, man. They are the good guys in this whole thing. Qobuz is of the major streaming services. Qobuz pays the most, I think, last I checked. But they also allow digital downloads from their site, so they do sort of Bandcamp and they do the streaming. But unfortunately, digital downloads are declining. Basically, full paid for digital downloads, the whole album, but they're declining rapidly in favor of streaming. If you look at the amount that the overall bulk of streaming, it's just growing exponentially, and I'm not using that word incorrectly. And whereas digital downloads are declining, fairly straight line. And CD sales, of course, are in the basement. Vinyl is there, sort of at the same level of CD sales, but it's all, that's all curiosity these days. So I love the Bandcamp model, and I wish there would be more to be done around it. People don't want to pay for music; they want to have it all, but they don't want to pay for it. So there's always going to be that sticking point. I pay like $20 a month or so to stream the music, but from a service that pays a little bit more. But that's my choice, and most people won't make that choice. And I had to come off that as well because I was front and center when Napster hit. And and I had to sort of train myself out of it as well, because for a while it's like you're running around and it's everything is free. It's like, yeah, this will go on forever, but you have to sort of learn that that's not the way to help things. And as a producer of music as well, executive production and such, those kinds of things, I know what those numbers look like on the back end. And most artists, even the best ones that you may have heard of, they're lucky if they break even. They maybe print 1,000 records and they hope to sell them, but they are all stacks in the basement too. So it's tough, and it's sad, man. It's heart wrenching, and where I can, I help sort of finance some of that, but I know I'm not going to see my money back. That's never the point, right? The point is to create something and to get it out there. But the profit motive is just, it's so far and few these days, of people that make it.
But there is one thing, though, if I may, and this is the thing, and I would like to hear what people think about this, because this is a discussion that I have with bandmates and people that I work with. There are some people who truly believe that there is a statistically significant correlation between how many streams you get and how many people come to your show. Or, there's that somehow this is having an effect that even though the music has been essentially made worthless in the marketplace, right? That the advertising, for lack of a better term, works. And the reason I don't buy it is twofold. First, and this is one thing that I like. These machines have made it very democratic to make music. Anybody who wants to essentially can, right? But that's also a problem because it creates an insane amount of music, right? Now, who's to say that the world needs to hear Sona Sombra or whatever, right? But it's all out there now. So it becomes very difficult for anybody to find it. Now you have to choose through so much more. And therefore, while the argument, like the analogy is flawed because it ignores the even though there's a lot more people that could in principle see your music, there is also a huge amount more of music that is out there. So you become an even tinier drop in a bigger ocean. And I honestly, I know personas because I have a pretty good idea of how that works, that this is not true. But for example, my good friend Matthias Olsson, he is a very big fan of all these services. I don't know if it's because he's Swedish and he likes Spotify as an act of solidarity or what the fuck. But he is convinced that this helps him, right? I don't know if he just, to be frank, I don't know if he truly believes that it helps him, or if he just believes that being against Napster is just an old fart thing, or Spotify is an old fart thing to do, right? But he has this view that this is like hip and cool, and that it definitely it can't fuck you over. Mm-hmm. And I'd say no. But I would like to hear your thoughts.
Well, Mateus also wanted a drum at Nearfest that was filled with water and goldfish, so I'll just leave that on the table. I kid you not about that.
And by the way, this is one of his previous albums that he sent me, Moldsam, and there is the man himself with all his madness, at his home studio. I love this guy to death. He's my brother, and we play in the Devil's Staircase, and he's great. He's a great guy.
He's a great guy. Don't get me wrong.
No, but he can be extravagant, and the whole point of Anglo-Guard was to be extravagant, we want 3 mellotrons because 1 is not stupid enough, kind of a thing. And I get it, but
I'll tell you a story. But I'll be right back. I gotta go do something.
Yeah.
What goes in must come out. So I'll be right back.
I haven't put anything in yet, too. That's my biggest flaw right now.
But with me, I buy the CDs because I like them. I wasn't a big fan of vinyl because of personal reasons. I was always afraid that I was either going to break it or scratch it with the needle. So I think I maybe had 20 vinyl records in the 80s. And then when CDs were coming out, that was the format for me. And I use right now, as for streaming, I use some of YouTube, and then I use Amazon Music. And I use those, I believe Luis was using that word, audition. I use those to audition the albums. And if I like it, I go and buy it. I don't use the streaming as an alternative to buying. I use them because in the 90s, I blind bought so much crap that selling it on eBay to get something back out of it so I can get stuff that I really want. So I like the physical media. There's 2 bands. My friend have bands out. They're not going to be pressing CDs. They're only going to have a digital on Bandcamp. And the music I like on one of their bands, I like it a lot, and I really wished it was. It's a band called Secret Martyrs Club, and Mark McCrite sings a couple songs on that. So it just it has a nice sound to it. But I really liked it on CD. But they said it's very hard to press the CDs, and you're gonna be like your friend Chad having boxes of CDs in your garage, sitting there collecting dust.
No, it's not cost effective, because in
Yeah.
order to make your numbers, you have to actually, do quite a few, and then your margins are smaller. And when you do small batches, it's a tough one. And with the CD download, really your margins are much higher. And, I think there is a lot to be said about that. But, as I said, CD downloads as a download form, as a going concern, if you will, it's it's heading right down the toilet. And I'm still holding on to it, obviously, because if I like something, I will buy it. But
I'm curious.
yeah,
I'm
go
sorry.
ahead.
Go ahead. No, I was just saying, I'm curious. Is that, do you look at that within an age bracket? Like, I think, like someone like myself, I have so many CDs that I bought through Bandcamp, but immediately was given the high res. Excuse me.
Bless you.
I was immediately given the high res download.
Hmm.
And a week, 10 days later, when the CD arrived, I put it on the shelf. I didn't even open it.
Yeah, same here. But I do it like that anyway, because when I get something new, I rip it and put it in my digital library. So I
Absolutely.
have instant access to it. I can play it anywhere in the house,
Yes.
especially on my main system, where I invested in a good deck. And it sounds absolutely brilliant there. And I love sitting in front of these, tower speakers and just listening and just, just doing the whole thing.
Yeah.
And
Out
my,
of curiosity, what's your DAC? Which brand is it?
it's a Exosound D38. It's Canadian, eh?
Oh, hey. Cool.
Deal is, I have a bunch of external hard drives that I rip everything to in lossless format,
Mhm.
which feed into a Mac Mini, and the HDMI out of my Mac Mini goes into my Marantz receiver, which then feeds my JBL system, and also feeds my 82-inch TV, which I'm using as a monitor right now to look at all you guys. But,
Yes. Oh, wow. Yeah. Yeah,
but
same here.
it
And
works,
then
it works for me.
the
But
album
as
art.
you saw, like if you see like this rack behind me, this is a green screen at the moment, but that actually is a photo of one of my racks, and I have 4 more of them, and they each hold about 1,300 CDs, depending on the packaging size and stuff, And then I couldn't tell you how many boxes of stuff
Vinyls.
that was sent to me during Nearfest. Even though I played no role in the selection of the artists that played at Nearfest, I was, as Luis knows, I used to have a couple of things to do there. But artists would send me a copy of the CD, as they did to Rob and Chad, or Ray and Jim, and I like to say that I have a very colorful drink coaster collection.
Oh,
I have a box that says unripped
Yeah.
with all those, the ones that somebody gave me at some point. I'm like, oh God, another one, because back in my DJ days, I got a lot of things that, I just listened to
I
it
get
once
it.
ago.
I
No, it's
understand.
not
Yeah.
even worth ripping, but there's always good within the noise, right? And I think the biggest challenge, and I think Luis, was that you that pointed out, that it's increasingly hard to find the signal in the noise these
Yeah.
days. And I think, to actually address that particular question, I actually, some of the salvation of the digital era is that, we have this stuff called metadata, that basically sits with all these albums and such, and they show who worked on it, what genre it is, when it was released, and you can actually find more like it. So I've discovered a lot of great music just by looking at the new releases, or having the tools that I have at my availability pick playlists for me and just generate them and just start playing. And then I go, wow, that's a great band, and I take a look and see what it is, and now I know, hey, okay, I add this one to my library, and I'll go find it on Bandcamp. So from a music discovery perspective, the tools are there, and they were in their infancy up until just very recently, where where it was really hard to find this stuff, but it's coming into its own right now. Now, from a music discovery perspective, I think that's actually, a fantastic thing. But, does it, you have to be on the lookout for stuff. And if you only like listening to the same things over and over again, or the same genre or something, you don't want to really go outside of it. It may be less effective, but for me, it really works. So, there are tools, and it's not all grim, but from an artist perspective, of course, getting to be heard and getting to be found, that's hard, but there are ways to do it, and you have to put yourself out there. But whether or not that translates to dollars, in the kitty, I mean, that's that elusive link right now that I think everyone's chasing.
Oh yeah.
Well, I think that's the sad thing about the music industry in general. And if you get right back to it, it's really not something new, because for every one artist that you've ever heard of that made it, there's how many thousands that never got even close. If you're into it just for money, you're going to lose. If you're coming from the heart and you really put your heart into it, you've got a better chance. But that doesn't mean you're going to make it either. You know what I mean? But
well, yeah, that's right. It means it's like me. I mean, I think that the Bernard Shaw quote, it really applies to me, that music is a brandy of the damned. And as you've seen from this podcast, I'm always thirsty, right? So and I think I would do it regardless, because I'm a musician and I write music, and this is what I do, right? But at the same time, though, I am more concerned. It's not really just a financial thing, as opposed to the viability of music as an art form that people care about enough to listen, as opposed to, as we've said before, it's kind of a cliche, but it really is sonic wallpaper. It really, really is. I can't tell you how many people I see on the train in Chicago, where I have brought a decibel meter in there, and the ambient noise is 90 dBs.
Oh, that's crazy. Extended exposure to that'll give you hearing loss.
These guys are pumping the little earbuds, and they're listening to whatever. So what the hell are they hearing? I have no idea. In that, I mean, the signal to noise, talk about that concept in that environment.
Yeah, but I look at those playlists, and I can't even identify anything on there. So that just means I'm old.
Yeah,
we're all old, and let's celebrate our age. Period.
Absolutely, because this is a privilege denied to many. We made it this far.
Yeah, that's right.
But I still think that it is important. It just seems like it's something that causes me anxiety to imagine the situation that we're in getting worse. I mean, it's not that I'm precious about what I do, but I think that it is important to conceive of a society where the art is valued, right? It seems to me like more and more, it exists at the whim of just a few people who are able to afford it, right? And who are able to keep it going, right? At cost to themselves. Mm-hmm. There doesn't seem to be any interest at all by the people who consume it in enabling its continued existence. I think that's a side effect of the mentality that it is worthless, that it's just going to happen because people don't think it through. Oh, well, you love it, you'll make it, right? Well, yeah, dude, but I got to work a full-time job. I got to do this, that, the other. And then somehow I got to coordinate with a bunch of other guys with equal responsibilities in order to make this happen.
Yeah,
and
it's amazing. Anything gets done.
Right? I mean, I remember in the early 90s when I started putting things out, we didn't even tour them, and we would sell out, a run of, the first album I put out, it was just an experimental thing for me. I made 1,000 copies. Okay. And they were sold out in a month. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
They were flying. I was just driving to the
post office back and forth. Oh, yeah, you again.
Hundreds and hundreds, and they were gone. Right. And then the next record we did, there was a crazy story where we were signed to a California label called Moonchild Records. And it's only a crazy story because Moonchild wanted that experimental record. And I thought, well, I'm just going to record a new one. And if they don't like it, well, I got the other one, right? So I recorded the new record, which became Snapshots from Limbo, and they got it. And then they were at first a little bit upset, but then they realized that they liked the new record better, so they were cool with it. And then absolute silence. I don't hear a single word from the label, nothing. And months go by and I'm going nuts. And this is, way before there were cell phones or any of these things everywhere, right? At least not, I didn't have one of those Miami Vice, tank ones. And I suddenly get a phone call. Yeah, right. from the, I think it was the Santa Barbara Police Department. And they wanted to know how I knew Brian Hirsch, who was the owner of Moonchild Records. I'm like, well, I was really freaked out by this phone call. I said, well, I've never actually met him. I just signed with his label for distribution of my album, and he manufactured. He split he actually paid to manufacture it, and I want to know what's up. And they said, well, he's missing, and you were in his Rolodex. So we're calling everybody who was in the Rolodex, and like, oh shit. Well, I live in Maryland, and I've never met him. I couldn't pick him out of a lineup, so I can't help you, right? And then time goes on, and then I get a second phone call. This one is from the owner of the warehouse where he kept the label, and that phone call was to say that according to California law, they were just gonna toss everything there because they needed to rent this place again. And again, my name was in the Rolodex. And I'm saying, well, I bet you there are boxes. I think Brian made 5,000 copies of the album. And I said, I would like to get those. Can I get those? I'll pay for the shipping, And the police, well, the owner of the warehouse said that he would call me back. Then the police called and told me that Brian Hirsch had been found dead.
Oh, shit.
He had committed suicide.
Oh,
they found him, and I am like,
your album that much?
I guess he did.
This is the best thing I've ever heard. This is the end for me. There's nothing else I want to hear.
With life.
What? I mean, sorry.
I still wanted my record, so I talked to these guys some more, and they said that the only shot was to call this guy's mother, who lived in Michigan. So I had to call this poor lady who had a million more important things to think about than my shitty fucking record, to ask her if there was any way that I could get my album from her, because I didn't have anything, right? And I wanted to get it. And of course, I was very sympathetic to her loss, even though I had never met her son. But, holy shit, what a flip way to learn your kid off himself, right?
Oh, jeez.
My God. And you're getting calls from assholes like me. Hey, I'm sorry, Mrs. Hirsch, but
sorry for your loss, but can I have my CDs now?
Yeah. Like that, you feel like the world's biggest fucking douche nozzle of that call. But she was unbelievably gracious, and they did send me everything at no cost to me, which I thought was remarkable. I got 3,000 of the.
You got any left?
They sold out. Not only that, I got an email from a guy in Hungary who said that $10 for a CD, too much. $5 for a CD, too much. We are gonna bootleg your album for $1 per CD, and when you come to Hungary, we will have big crowd ready for you. So he was a proto Spotify dude, right? And by the way, he wasn't asking me. He was just telling me. The email was not, hey, can we work this out? He just informing me that this pirate operation was underway, and that I should be happy that I would have this great fan base in Hungary. And so it went, but I sold out, and I still didn't tour. Over the years, with the latest Sonos records, dudes, I've toured Canada, the US, Mexico, everywhere I can, up and down the East Coast. It's hard work to get through 1,000. Hard work. And it takes years. to sell the damn 1,000.
Let me ask you a
So
question.
you know, it's and I find that the people who buy the CDs are mostly guys my age. The young people who go to the concert, they get one of those downloads from Bandcamp or whatever, and they buy a T-shirt or
One
some
of your
other
T-shirts.
yeah. And so I feel like I am I have a music interest that feeds my T-shirt venture.
Well, as you
know,
well know, my
like
son is
I'm
over
a
T-shirt.
road salesman of clothes, and I have music to motivate the purchase. You know, this is what I do.
You know what? So that's a marketing idea right there. You just need to just run with it, man. You'll be super successful. Hey, I've got a clothing line, but the music allows me to promote it. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
It's
buy
your
the
promotional
shirt.
vehicle to your clothing line.
Buy the shirt and get a free download.
Yeah, I got the USB stick stuck in the shoulder here, right there.
That's right.
It comes
in a
with it.
handy little pocket.
Little pocket.
Oh, Luis, you remember I used to wear your Sana Summer shirts every year as a good luck thing when I was loading in at Nearfest, remember?
That's right.
Now let me ask you guys something, Franz and Luis. This would be more towards you because you're artists. There's no financial gain, so what is the payoff? Where's the rush?
I mean, it's already
Silence.
me.
Crickets.
No. For me, the rush is clear. I love to play, right? I love to play, and it's actually a lot of fun for me. I love driving, so I don't mind. The actual tour is fun because when it's my turn to drive, I enjoy that, and when it's not my turn to drive, I love to read. So for me, all that downtime is actually useful time because I can be doing calculations like these because I'm also a physicist, so I can be working and I can be doing things that are useful to me while other people are doing whatever they do. So I love that life. I love traveling,
Man,
and I
look
love
forward
that.
to it.
I love the hour and a half that we are on stage, and I love the dinner after and the jokes more than anything. I absolutely love it. I love talking to the people after the show.
Yeah, I think the
it's beautiful.
camaraderie is something special, especially in sort of the progressive music spheres, because everyone's in it and they've been in it for a long time, and it's like this big family. So it's always fun to sort of have that time. But you know what? The problem is you have to make a lot of money in order to be able to make music these days, and you don't get it from the music. That's why as I was saying earlier, from the production side, you just you know what the numbers are, and you just just hope you break even, just so you can so everybody can look their wives in their eye, straight in the eye and say, hey honey, sold a couple albums today, but it's more like that. I think that's really the thing. But I think the whole motivation of being able to make a living making music, it's so vanishingly few people that can do that these days, that can be a full-time musician. And I always look at them, go, wow, I'm really impressed, you're able to do that. But not all of them, or many of them actually had either a leg up, or they, labels sort of took interest in them, and others, they just worked hard. Look at Porcupine Tree, Steven Wilson. I mean, that guy was touring and touring and touring. He was coming up to Seattle, places nobody else would come. And every time he would come in, more people would show up. And he put in the work, man. I mean, you look at that guy, and he's not a one-hit wonder or something like that. He truly put in the work, and he put in the work nobody else was willing to do, of his ilk. So there is ways to do it, but it's tough, and it takes a toll on it. That's why he'd rather be sitting in the production booth these days.
I was going to say,
And
Steve
he also
Wilson
made
is also very
sacrifice.
well known for his 5.1 remixes.
I have every single one of them. Yeah,
I just literally last week got the.
I see some sitting.
Yeah, I bought some stuff on
Freehand.
Bandcamp from him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but
You know-
I want the 5.1 stuff. They don't sell it on Bandcamp. Typically, you can't download it. You have to rip it off of the Blu-rays and such.
Right.
But yeah.
I mean, Steven, I remember when he started, and when I became aware of him, right? He
Mhm.
was playing in a record store in Maryland called Phantasmagoria. And he was scared shitless because he just saw, in his mind, you could see the ticker tape of all the money this was costing him. Right? And then later, when he did sign the deal with Atlantic, for the first year and a half or 2 years of that, he was losing money. He was indebted for several $100,000. And then he made it. He hit that critical mass,
Mm-hmm.
But it came at a great, he couldn't, he chose, I'm not going to have a family.
Yeah, he put that off for decades.
Other, nothing. This music is my wife and my life.
Mm-hmm.
And
rarely have I seen anybody as focused as him, but he's made it to a point where he can actually, make a living doing music, and he's also doing all the side gigs, doing those 5.1 mixes. I think Kevin, you have a whole bunch of them behind you over there, thick as a brick. Yeah. I see. I mean, he's done that, but he's depressingly talented. But that's the thing is. Yeah, there you go. But that's the thing is, it is possible, but man, you have to be such a such a unique individual to be able to pull it off these days. Whereas in the 60s, 70s, everyone was getting label deals, but I think they had to put in a lot of money to make a little. And I just don't know if that time frame is ever going to come back again. I mean, you've got the modern day success stories like Billie Eilish, but she was actually almost engineered, from the get go, from birth, to be a recording artist.
But the downside is you got Justin Bieber.
Yeah, that's always the downside to every single discussion, I think.
Hey, Canadian, hey.
It's Canadian, yeah. I mean, sorry, man, Robert. Come on, man. You're gonna claim that? I think we'll chuck him over the border, and then we'll boot him back to you.
We will. We will.
But the thing that helped me when I was younger, and I was really, frustrated a lot of the time, I found this book, right? This is Tchaikovsky, just Notes on Harmony. Now, this is not a book that he wrote because he was commissioned by some hardcore publisher. These are the lecture notes of the shitty college where he had to teach so he wouldn't starve.
Right.
So, and I am not fucking Tchaikovsky.
Exactly. If Tchaikovsky had trouble with it.
If he had to hustle, I need to shut the fuck up and do this. And that's the other part of it,
Probably teaching piano lessons or something.
Yeah, absolutely. And dude, Mike Mangini of Dream Theater spent the pandemic teaching kids drums on video cameras, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because he had to get a little extra.
Yeah, a little extra cash. Yeah.
So it's at some basic level, it goes to what we were talking about earlier. I think many people have very weird ideas about what the actual income is for many of these things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what it means to, even if you sell, 5 or 10,000 records, right? You're going to have to take a couple of years before you make the next one and be able to sell those. So whatever portion of that is for you, you're going to live on that for the next 2 years. And you better hope that you don't get sick, that some shit doesn't happen. There's a lot of stress involved in this kind of lifestyle. So for me, that sort of stress didn't suit my temperament. So I was lucky that I had a second career as a theoretical physicist, so I could I'm a physics professor, so I have a steady income. And my work is such that I have the winter break and the summers free to do whatever the hell I want. And if I want to do research, I can do that. If I want to tour, I can do that also. And that's how I make it work for myself, right? Now, the other guys in the band have different situations because they have a more normal jobs, and then they have an even more complicated negotiation with their significant others, because when they do have a vacation, well, it's not easy to just say, well, I'm going to take it up for a tour, because they're looking at them like, what the fuck? I don't think so. Right?
Yeah. What's this tour thing? You get a week off, that's it. No more. Otherwise, you're fired.
It's a little bit difficult, to people don't see that. And that's across the board. I think TV and all that, they only show you the success. They never show you that you have to be happy with constant failure, because that's how the creative process is. You don't succeed 100% of the time. You don't succeed 90% of the time. You succeed 5% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
You just got to work hard the rest of the time.
5, huh? That seems high.
Yeah. I mean, on a good week, on a good month, maybe 3. but that's about right, But the students that I get are not comfortable with that idea because they've never been told that this is what they should expect.
Hmm.
And when I tell them I am depicted as a bad guy because what am I doing? I'm deflating your confidence. Like, no, but the opposite. I'm hoping that you get with the program, right? And that you
Yeah. I think the motivations for doing it need to be true, but I think that's always been the case. I mean, look at your Tchaikovsky example. You fake it till you make it, or whatever you want to call it. But and some people will never get to that part where they sell 10,000 CDs even. But there's so much good music encapsulated within that. And I think back to the original topic. I mean, they may have never been able to sell many records, in the previous thing when they had to compete against actual labels and such. Maybe this is a democratization, and maybe the way to do it is to do a combination between lessons and between, writing scores for movies and TV, as well as, that. I see a lot of my artist friends are doing that. They're really spreading themselves out, and they're doing production and other things in order to make it work. And perhaps the picture that we need to paint is that streaming is not the only avenue for that. And I thought your point earlier was really good about the correlation or the statistical significance between selling many or streaming many streams on Spotify and actually having live attendances or even album sales. And to that, I also want to say that some of those streaming services actually fudge their numbers. Tidal got caught with it. It's like, why? Who's listening to Jay-Z? Nobody, right? And sure enough, they were actually juicing their own numbers so they could be number one in their own charts all the time. Bastards! And by doing so, cutting down on the actual royalties that they owed all the albums that they supplanted with their fake numbers. Freaking bastards, man! I mean, what's up with that? And that's
Who owns
just
Tidal?
Jay-Z.
Yeah, there you go.
Whoa. And Beyonce, but that's the thing is there's some of that fudgering going on as well. And you look at all these videos these days that are streaming, it's like 200 million streams. And I mentioned Billie Eilish before, but go look at those things. And you see, like Pink Floyd, 500,000 streams, Billie Eilish, 20 million. It's like, what? What's going on?
Yeah.
So it's like, there is a definite shift going on there, and some of it's manufactured, so you have to wade through a lot of noise, before you actually can get to the truth.
But there are surprises out there. You want to hear a great surprise? Miley Cyrus, of all people, just put out her version of Metallica's "Nothing Else Matters." Go listen, you can find it online on a video. Go listen to it.
No, I've actually. I have to admit, she is a very good vocalist. I've seen her do a lot of covers, where you think, wow, that Miley Cyrus, come on. But she's a very good vocalist. She doesn't write the music, but man, she's a great interpreter, though. I'm surprised.
She really pulled that one off.
I'll check it out.
I really, you want to, and I think you'll be impressed because I figured, okay, I put it on. I figured this is going to be good for a laugh, and it was all over. I was like, wow.
I just was watching Weezer do "Take on Me" the other day. I'm like, Weezer, "Take on Me," really, from Aha? And they did a really serviceable job. They had the fake band in there with the kid from Stranger Things and his actual band, lip syncing to Weezer. And I'm like, this is going to be really, really bad. And I came away from it going, actually, that was quite good. So
there's a lot of stuff out there. To get back to what we were saying is like, what gives you the rush? I come from a different point of view than you two guys do, but we're involved in the same situation. You're the band on stage. My job was to make sure you could go on stage. And Luis was backstage with us for a whole Near Fest, so he knows what we went through. We all had it organized and everything. We were at Nearfest. We were a non-profit organization, a legal non-profit organization. People would always say, "Well, what was the payoff to you?" Now, I can't speak for Rob and Chad because those guys did a job like nobody has done before and nobody's done since when it comes to progressive rock festivals. No one's come close. But for me, the payoff was, well, you had like a Keith Emerson, you had Renaissance, you had IQ, you had think UK were the headline acts, but you had the first band on and the second band on who were like hired because they had a great buzz on the internet, because the better internet radio stations like the Gagly Archives, like Oral Moon, House of Prague, ProgRock.com were playing them.
Hey, the dividing line, man, come on.
Absolutely.
Prague, so it's also.
But then you also had Progressive Ears and Prog Archives. People were talking about them. The bands would be brought in. These were guys who had 9 to 5 jobs, 5 days a week. If they played 6 gigs a year in their hometown, they played a lot. But their CD was catching on, so Rob and Chad would bring them in. And you know what I'm talking about, Luis, for the type of support you got from the staff there. I would watch the looks on their faces as they walked off the stage. And the looks on their faces, that was the payoff to me, because I knew we did our job. Because these guys were like, there was no drug that was going to give them the high. They just got from, I mean, the crew that we supplied was as good as any crew you could get on a A-level tour, The production, the sound, the lights, the video was all right there. The gear you needed, we used to have, for drummers, we had the Yamaha Absolute Maple drum kit. Complete. Every piece they put out, twice. Because one was on stage being played, one was back here being produced, okay? Being, made. Both were on, 8x8 risers on wheels, and we had 2 separate sets of mics with, quick disconnects, so you could just roll one off, roll one on. Guitar amps, we had, what did we have, 9, or what was it? 3 triple stack Marshall setups. And we had like 2 to 3 of each amp. Same thing with bass rigs. Keyboards, that could be a nightmare. Trust me. But we had them. Like you said, we had 3 Mellotrons there in any given year. Whatever they needed, they got. And the job was, as one guy asked me, he goes, "What's your job?" I said, "My job is to make sure you can do your job without thinking about my job." You had to go on stage feeling good about what you were doing. That was the thing. So when these first bands who'd never seen production like that before, and may never see it again, walked off stage, the look on their face, you couldn't beat it. That was it. There was no drug was going to beat that. But then to get into, like we were saying with touring is a young single man's job if you're not an artist. Trust me. The divorce rate is second only to the police department.
But anyway, I do hope that there is a solution to this mess with the streaming, because it is.
I think it's going to take a lot of work on us geezers to try to convert the younger generation into,
You won't.
what
It's not going to happen, man. They don't even
It's not going to happen.
they don't even listen to their own parents, man. Come on.
right.
As long as these kids can get anything they want for $10, $20, whatever it is a month, right?
It's a commodity at best.
And then they look at it, well, I'm going to pay $20 a month and I have access to everything. But if one CD will cost me $15, but I can get that from my $20 a month. They're not going to do it. Not because they're wrong. They just grew up in a situation where they don't know any better.
Right.
Everything's rented. Nothing is owned.
And for all the companies that are out there literally streaming, there's no big wall fighting it. You know what I mean? That they're seeing. I only know of one streaming company that I like, in the sense, it's called Vox, VOX. I don't know if you've heard of them. They only deal with people who have Apple. And what you do is this. You can take, like, all the CDs behind me, I can rip them to a lossless format. For $4.99 a month, $49 a year, or $89 for 2 years, I can feed them into the cloud. I have access to my entire library on whatever my streaming unit is, okay? I can't, like, if you say to me, hey, check out the new Sonus Umbra, I have no access to it through that. All I have access to my own library. I like that because I can take my library with me. Okay.
Well, if any NAS these days can stream to the cloud as well. So, I mean, I'm hosting my own. So, but it's nice to have a service that does that and makes it easy, because you have to have some knowledge to make it, to set that other one up. But, I do like that concept. But yeah, I'd like to merge the two together so we have the ability to stream and interlace it.
We have to talk online because I'm definitely interested in the NAS and everything you're talking
And
about.
I'll show you, actually, we'll do another one where I actually show you, I can screen share and show you all the things I got going on. So just hit me up.
Right.
Yeah, we could do this. We could do this again if you want to keep it live, or if you want to keep it,
Yeah, whatever, man.
private.
I'm game.
Whatever.
But I do have a hard stop right now, so I do have to run, guys.
Okay. Well,
All right.
I appreciate you guys doing this, and We'll
And
do this again
I will
soon.
be contacting you on Facebook. 'Cause I
Yeah,
definitely
yeah.
want to talk about the technology side.
Yeah, I'm on your friends list, man.
Yes,
Look
we
me
are.
up.
All right.
Guys, it's been a great
Have a good one.
pleasure. It's been
Well,
fun talking to
everybody,
you, all of you.
Ron, Ken,
So, yeah,
Cheers.
great evening.
buddies.
Thank
Out of
you.
here.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
All right.